I bought the land after my last deployment, tucked deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where the mist clings to the trees like memories and the silence hums louder than a battlefield ever could. The property had once belonged to an old logger who passed it down to his grandson, who in turn lost it to bad debt and worse decisions. I saw it listed at an auction while I was still on base in Camp Pendleton and wired the funds as soon as I saw the coordinates. I wasn't just buying land. I was buying peace. I was buying an escape. No neighbors, no fences, no politics, just 40 acres of untouched mountain property with a creek that cut through it like a silver ribbon and a view that made you believe in God again. I had my contractor build a modest 2-story cabin with a wraparound porch and a small dock by the creek. Solar panels on the roof, satellite internet, water from a drilled well, self-sufficient, off-grid. After years of serving overseas, this was supposed to be my sanctuary. What I didn't realize, what none of the property records mentioned, was that the land bordered a newly developing HOA resort project called Silver Pines Lake Villas. It was one of those luxury communities that preyed on the wealthy, promising them lake access and mountain charm, while squeezing out the people who had lived here for generations. They were trying to build 26 modern villas with artificial landscaping, concrete driveways, and imported palm trees, yes, palm trees, in the Appalachians. I had no intention of ever dealing with them, but the moment my cabin started going up, the HOA took notice. A woman named Karen Whitaker showed up 2 weeks after I moved in, blonde bob haircut, mirrored sunglasses, clipboard in hand, and a permanent scowl like she'd been born disappointed. She introduced herself as the HOA president, though my land wasn't under their authority. She said they were concerned about my unauthorized construction and non-compliant landscaping. I didn't even respond. I just pointed to the private property, no trespassing, sign nailed to a tree by the driveway and walked back inside. But Karen wasn't the kind of person who backed down when ignored. She was the kind who took silence as a challenge. The next week, I got a letter in the mail, an offer to buy my land for $160,000, double what I paid. No explanation, no greeting, just a typed letter and a phone number. I ignored it. A second letter came, this time offering $250,000 and threatening easement conflicts if I didn't cooperate. I threw that one in the fire pit. That same week, she returned, this time with 2 other HOA board members and a surveyor who started measuring my fence line. I stepped out onto my porch wearing nothing but jeans and boots, arms crossed, and told them they had 10 seconds to leave or I'd call the sheriff. Karen, with a smug look, said, "We already have legal grounds to contest your ownership. This land was previously zoned for public easement." That was a lie, and I knew it. I kept silent, letting the silence thicken like fog. Then I slowly pulled my shirt off my shoulder to show the tattoo that spanned across it, a trident piercing a skull with a banner underneath that read, "The only easy day was yesterday." Her eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost. I saw the moment recognition hit her. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She turned and left without another word. The following morning, I found orange flags staked into my land along the eastern edge, markers that weren't mine. Someone had spray-painted crude numbers and initials onto a few of the boundary trees. It was obvious intimidation. They were trying to play the game of psychological warfare, but I had been trained by people who wrote the book on that. I took my ATV out and removed every flag, cut down every marked branch, and burned them in the fire barrel. Then I filed a formal complaint with the county zoning office. The woman at the desk raised her eyebrows when she saw the name, Silver Pines HOA, and muttered something about another one of their stunts. A week later, a county assessor confirmed in writing that my land was independently owned and excluded from HOA jurisdiction by a grandfathered clause that predated the HOA's existence. I posted a copy of that letter in a weatherproof case on my front gate, just in case Karen or her cronies got any more ideas. For a few weeks, things went quiet. I spent my days cutting timber, building out a greenhouse, and enjoying the creek with my black lab, Shadow. But peace was always temporary around here. One night, around midnight, I was woken by Shadow growling at the window. I grabbed my rifle and peered out the front porch. Someone had thrown roofing nails across my gravel driveway. I found 2 tires punctured on my truck the next morning. Shadow, being the trained dog she was, had picked up a scent and followed it down toward the HOA side of the property line, barking furiously at a black SUV parked near one of the villas under construction. I took a photo of the tire damage, filed a police report, and installed motion-sensitive trail cams all along my perimeter. That night, I slept with one eye open and the rifle within arm's reach. I wasn't just protecting a piece of land anymore, I was defending a principle. Karen returned the next week with a new offer, this time face to face. "You don't belong here," she said bluntly, standing outside my gate. "This land could serve so many more people as part of our resort. You can't possibly need all this space. We're willing to offer you $400,000 and a premium villa in the community." I leaned on the fence post, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "I didn't fight in 3 countries just to come home and be pushed off my own dirt by people like you." She tried to argue, launching into some spiel about development goals and property enhancement, but I raised my arm again, this time letting the tattoo show in full daylight. Her voice faltered. You were one of them?" she asked quietly. "SEAL Team 6, I replied. "What exactly were you planning to do, bully a Special Forces veteran into selling his land?" She looked like she'd just swallowed glass. She turned on her heel and stormed off without another word. It wasn't over, though. A week later, I received a notice from the local municipality claiming a mandatory inspection was required for safety compliance. It reeked of HOA manipulation. Sure enough, 2 men in hard hats and official-looking badges showed up with clipboards and an air of authority, trying to force their way into my cabin. I refused them entry without a warrant. They cited some obscure code about improper structure orientation and visual pollution. I called my lawyer, who confirmed it was a bluff. That night, I wrote a letter to every local government official, attaching the zoning documents, easement maps, and a brief summary of the harassment I had endured. I included photos of the damage to my truck, the surveyor trespassing, and the fake inspection team. I didn't name names, but Karen's involvement was obvious from the pattern. Then, something strange happened. I started getting phone calls from reporters. Apparently, one of the county clerks had leaked my complaint, and it had gone viral in a local veteran advocacy forum. A story titled, "Decorated Navy SEAL Harassed by HOA Over Mountain Property," made the rounds online, sparking a flood of angry emails and public outcry. I was invited to speak at a county board meeting. I wore a flannel shirt and jeans, stood up in front of a packed room, and told them everything: the intimidation, the bribes, the property damage, the sleepless nights. Karen was there too, sitting in the back with her arms folded and jaw clenched. When I rolled up my sleeve and revealed the tattoo in front of everyone, there was a collective gasp. One of the board members stood and saluted. That moment changed everything. After the meeting, Karen tried to approach me in the parking lot, but this time she didn't have the same arrogant stride. Her voice was almost sheepish. "I didn't know, I just thought," she stammered. I cut her off with a glance. "You thought a quiet man was a weak man," I said. "You mistook stillness for submission. That's your mistake, not mine." She didn't say another word. She just turned and walked away, head down, shoulders slumped. But I knew it wasn't over. Bullies rarely give up, they retreat and regroup. I had just shown her my history, but she hadn't yet shown me her full hand. I didn't have to wait long. 2 nights later, I caught movement on one of the trail cams. A figure in a hoodie walked along the edge of my property near the tool shed. I waited silently inside the cabin, shadow alert by the door. I watched the live feed from the cam on my phone. Whoever it was had bolt cutters. I slipped out the back, rifle slung low, and flanked them in the dark. I recognized the posture, the stance. It wasn't just a random vandal. This person had training. I flicked my flashlight on and yelled, "Don't move." The figure froze. I approached cautiously, rifle up, and told them to remove the hood. To my shock, it was a man in his early 40s, military haircut, calm eyes, but no insignia. "Name?" I demanded. "You're not law enforcement." He smirked. "No, but I used to be," he replied. "Karen sent you?" I asked. "Sort of. She hired a security consultant to verify your property lines. Told me I'd get a bonus if I found violations." That was it. Karen had crossed a line. Hiring private security to spy on my land was borderline criminal. I took a photo of the man, his ID, and handed him a written trespass warning. "You come back, you're going to jail," I said. He nodded and walked off into the night. The next morning, I filed a restraining order against the HOA and Karen personally, citing the attempted break-in and illegal surveillance. That was when the sheriff finally got involved, and the story really started to escalate. But that's where this part ends, because what came next? Let's just say, Karen was about to learn what happens when a Navy SEAL stops being polite. The restraining order was like lighting a match in a gas-filled room. Within 48 hours, I received a call from the county sheriff's office. Sheriff Dalton, a broad-shouldered, no-nonsense type who knew me by name from both the veteran community and the shooting range, asked me to come down and give a full statement. "We've been getting noise from that WA for months," he said. "But this, hiring private security to creep onto your land at night, that's a different beast." I brought in my trail cam footage, the printed restraining order, and even Karen's threatening letters. Dalton's jaw tightened as he read them. "You know," he said, flipping through the pages, "this is starting to look like organized harassment. Maybe even conspiracy to intimidate a legal property owner. We might be able to push for charges." Karen had poked the wrong bear. She thought I was just some loner vet living in a cabin, but I still had deep connections. I called in a favor from a former Navy buddy who now worked with the state attorney's office. He reviewed my case and quietly flagged it for escalation. Meanwhile, the online buzz continued to grow. What started as a small forum post had become a regional firestorm. Local news stations began circling, requesting interviews, and WA members started distancing themselves from Karen. 2 of the WA board members resigned, leaving Karen to handle the mess alone. Even some of the villa buyers started pulling out after reading about the drama. Karen tried damage control, claiming the hired consultant was acting without her approval, but I had the guy's signed contract, which listed her name as the principal. I turned that over to Sheriff Dalton too. Things were no longer in Karen's control, she'd crossed into legal territory she didn't understand. But Karen didn't surrender. Bullies like her never do. She tried one final tactic, a lawsuit. Her lawyers filed a civil claim accusing me of interfering with community development and defamation of character. It was laughable, especially since I had never once said her name publicly or posted anything online myself. I countered with a legal team of my own, funded partially through a veteran advocacy group that had taken a keen interest in the case. The moment her attorneys realized who I had backing me, their confidence evaporated. Depositions were scheduled, her own board members were subpoenaed. The man she hired for the break-in confessed under oath that Karen had offered him a $10,000 bonus if he found something illegal on my land. There was nothing, because I had done everything right from day one. That's when I learned something Karen had hoped would never surface. During the deposition, one of the resigning board members mentioned a shady land grant Karen had orchestrated years ago to acquire the property next to mine. It turned out, the WA had manipulated zoning permits through a friend of hers at the county office. She thought she could do the same with my land, forge easement access, then claim partial ownership through legal maneuvering. But my parcel was under an older zoning designation with ironclad mineral and water rights, grandfathered in before her WA even existed. She hadn't expected someone like me to understand the legal system. She expected someone rural, someone naive. But I had studied war, tactics, negotiation, and terrain for over a decade. I understood patience, and more than anything, I understood how to play the long game. The real moment of poetic justice came a few weeks later at the county courthouse. Karen walked in with her usual smugness, wearing designer glasses and a high-necked blouse, trying to present herself as a community leader. But when the judge read the witness testimonies and saw the video evidence, he stopped the hearing midway. "This appears less like a property dispute and more like targeted harassment against a lawful landowner and decorated veteran," he said. "I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for further review." Karen's face turned pale. That moment, watching the realization dawn in her eyes, seeing her arrogance melt into panic, was worth every sleepless night. Outside the courthouse, a local news station caught up with me. They asked if I had anything to say about the case. I kept it simple. "This land is mine. I bled for this country. I'm not giving up an inch of it to anyone who thinks they can bully their way through life." That clip aired that night, and the public response was overwhelming. Dozens of people messaged me, veterans, mountain locals, folks who'd been bullied by HOAs across the country, thanking me for standing my ground. Even the sheriff sent me a private message: "You didn't just win this for yourself. You won it for a lot of us." Despite the victory, I remained cautious. Karen was quiet, but I didn't trust the silence. My land was more than just a home now, it was a symbol. I finished reinforcing my fences, added more solar panels, built a wind turbine, and even set up an emergency generator in case anything ever happened to the power lines. I wanted to be untouchable, unreachable. Shadow stayed by my side every day, growing more protective as strangers started coming up the mountain just to see the seal who beat the wah. I didn't mind. Some brought gifts. One even brought homemade moonshine and left with a handshake and a smile. Then one day, a letter arrived, not from Karen, but from the developer backing the entire Lake Villas project. The letterhead was expensive. The tone was cautious. They were offering me a deal, $1.2 million for my land, plus an executive role overseeing community security and development. I laughed out loud. These people still didn't get it. It was never about the money. I folded the letter and used it as kindling in my wood stove that night. Some things can't be bought. And peace of mind. That's one of them. A week later, I heard that Karen had stepped down as HOA president. The board voted her out, and her name was scrubbed from every project document they had. Word was she tried to sue the developer for abandonment after they distanced themselves from her public failures. The sheriff's department confirmed she was under investigation, though charges hadn't been officially filed yet. But I knew what that meant. Her power was gone. Her influence dried up. All that remained was her name, spoken in whispers among a community that once feared her. Now, they pitied her. The sun dipped low over the mountains as I sat on the porch one evening, shadow at my feet, sipping black coffee from a tin mug. The sky turned orange, then indigo, then a deep velvet. I could hear the creek running in the distance and the chirp of crickets in the tall grass. My shoulder tattoo, visible in the warm twilight, felt like a shield more than ink. It wasn't just a mark of who I was, it had become a message. This land is guarded, not by laws or documents, but by resolve. Karen had tried to turn my home into a battlefield. What she didn't realize was, I never left the battlefield. I just chose a quieter one. That night, I updated my journal, the one I'd kept since boot camp. I wrote about the silence after war, the peace that's earned, not given. About land, legacy, and standing your ground when everything around you tries to push you off center. I wrote about Karen, not with hatred, but with clarity. She was a symptom, not the disease. The disease was greed, entitlement, and the belief that money could conquer everything. But it couldn't conquer me. Because I didn't just own the land, I respected it. I belonged to it, and for the first time since returning home, I truly felt free. Months passed, and the mountain air grew colder, crisper, cleaner, as if the land itself had been purged of something foul. Silver Pines Lake Villas didn't expand. The development stalled. The grand plans Karen had pushed so arrogantly were shelved quietly. Without her at the helm and with public interest fading fast, investors began pulling out. A few villas were half-finished, skeletal wooden frames left to rot under rain and snow. The HOA scrambled to recover, but without their visionary leader, they found themselves rudderless. It turned out Karen had made a lot of promises she couldn't keep and cut corners with every shortcut she could find. The whole enterprise had been built on her arrogance, and now that foundation crumbled. Still, despite the calm, I kept my defenses in place, trail cams running, dog alert, rifle always oiled and ready. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the preparation that keeps conflict from reaching your door. One late autumn morning, just as the frost had started kissing the ground, I heard tires crunch on the gravel outside. Shadow barked once, not a threat, more a heads up. I stepped onto the porch and saw an unfamiliar pickup truck pulling up to the gate. Out stepped a man in a tweed jacket, clean-shaven, carrying a leather satchel. "Mr. Granger?" he asked. "I'm representing a real estate law firm, though unofficially. I'm also a friend of Karen Whitaker's family." I didn't answer. I just let the silence sit on his shoulders like a weight. He shifted uncomfortably. She's in a rough spot. Lost her position, her standing. Facing charges, mounting debt. She wanted me to ask if you'd be willing to meet with her. She'd like to offer an apology." I let out a long, quiet breath, then said, "She had every chance to do the right thing when it mattered. Now she wants forgiveness just because she finally lost." He nodded, unsure what to say. "Tell her I've already forgiven her," I continued, "but I'm not interested in seeing her again. Let that be the last message she ever hears from me." The man nodded, turned around, and left. As the dust kicked up behind his truck,